In this video, I'm going to talk about how to solve an equation for a variable. So the first thing we need to talk about is balancing equations. So think of the equation as like a scale. You've seen these scales where if it's not balanced, it'll tip to one side, but if it's balanced, then it'll be level. So think of your equation as like a scale. So if I think of this scale, if I add 3, let's say it has gold coins. If I add 3 gold coins on one side, then in order to keep it balanced, I would need to add 3 gold coins to the other side, right? If it already started out as a balanced scale, then to keep it balanced, you would need to add the same amount to both sides. So keeping that image in mind, let's look at an equation. I'll just start really simple. So let's say we have 3 plus x equals 7. So this equation is already balanced because this equal sign tells us that it's balanced. It says that everything on the left is equal to everything on the right. When we solve these equations, try to think of it as a left side and a right side. So we usually draw a line through the equal sign. So we think of that as the left side and the right side. So right now, it's already balanced. And your end goal after you do all of your solving, this is a really simple equation, but let's just pretend I solve. When I get down to the bottom, my answer should look like x equals a number. And since this is a really easy equation, you've probably already figured it out. X equals 4. So thinking of your end goal in mind, eventually when you solve these equations, you want to get x equals a number. So what I like to think about is just keeping the x on the side where it is. Usually we like it on the left side. Sometimes it's on the right side. But I like to just keep the x where it is and then move all the other numbers to the other side. So taking this example again, if we have 3 plus x equals 7. So real quick, I just want to go back to the example of the scale that needs to be balanced. So the thing to keep in mind is you can do whatever you want to an equation. Whatever you want, as long as you do the same thing to both sides. So if I wanted to add 100 on the left side, I can do that, and that's fine. I just need to make sure I add 100 to the right side. You just have to do the same thing to both sides. If I wanted to multiply by 593, that's okay. I can do that as long as I multiply by 593 on the other side. Or if I wanted to subtract 107, same thing. I can do that. I just have to subtract 107 on the other side. Or let's just do one more. Let's add a division in there. If I want to divide by, let's see, what's a good number? 211. If I wanted to do that, I could. I just have to divide by 211 on the other side. So hopefully you get the idea. You can do whatever you want, like literally anything. I could even, if I really wanted to, I could square root the left side as long as, you guessed it, I square root the right side. I can do anything. You can do whatever you want. You just have to do the same thing to both sides. Now, would I actually do these things? Probably not, because as you can see, this just makes the equation a lot more complicated and ugly. So we don't want to complicate things. We actually want to simplify things. So I'm going to go back to the original equation. 3 plus x equals 7. So like I said, you can do anything that you want to these equations. You just have to do the same thing on both sides. But there is a logic to it, right? You want to do something that actually helps you and that doesn't make it more complicated and ugly. So what you want to think about is canceling out the numbers that are on the same side as the x. So if I draw my line through my equal sign, I want to get the x by itself. So the number that is on the same side as the x is this 3. So I want to think about how can I get rid of that 3, because I want the x to be by itself. So it's just a positive 3. So I want to think about how can I cancel out or get rid of that positive 3. So what I would do is minus 3. Because 3 minus 3 is 0. So that's going to get rid of that 3. And then in order to keep the equation balanced, I have to do the same thing on both sides. So since I did minus 3 on the left side, I have to do minus 3 on the right side. So then when I actually do that, those 3's turn to 0. So I'm only left with x on the left side equals, and then I actually do that math. So 7 minus 3 equals 4. Once you get it down to x equals a number, then you're done. That's your answer. Because we were just trying to figure out what x is. And so that was a really simple example. Let's look at one that's a little more complicated. So how about 2x plus 3 equals 21? Okay, so this is a little bit more complicated. So again, I'm going to start by drawing the line through the equal sign. So I have my left side and my right side. Eventually, I want to get this x by itself. So I'm just going to think about how can I get rid of those numbers that are on the same side as the x. And usually there'll be one that looks a little easier. So you want to start with the easier stuff first and then move into the more complicated stuff. So we see that plus 3, so we can think, okay, how can I cancel out or get rid of that plus 3? So we would just do the opposite of plus, and we would do minus 3. Because, again, 3 minus 3 is 0. So that's going to get rid of that 3. And then just make sure you always do the same thing on both sides. So I'm just going to do this one step at a time. So I'll bring down what I have left over. I still have this 2x. And then the 3 minus 3 was 0, so we don't actually have to write 0. I'll just leave it off. So 2x equals, and then let's do this math, 21 minus 3, that would equal 18. Okay, so now we have 2x equals 18. We're getting closer, but that x is still not completely by itself. So we have to think about how we can get rid of that too. So when you have a number right next to a variable like that, 2x, that means those are multiplying. So that means 2 times x. So if it's multiplying, then the way you get rid of it is doing the opposite, which would be dividing. So I'm going to divide by 2. Now, sometimes we say that those cancel out. They don't actually cancel out. What's actually happening is 2 divided by 2 equals 1. So then we have 1 times x, which would just be x. So we sometimes say they cancel out, but what's actually happening mathematically is they're dividing to 1. And when you multiply by 1, it doesn't change the value of whatever you're multiplying by. So 1 times x is just x. So that's still going to leave us with just an x over here on the left side. But since we divided by 2 on the left side, we have to do the same thing, divide by 2 on the right side to keep our equation balanced, remembering the scale. So 18 divided by 2 equals 9. So now we've got our x by itself, we got it down to x equals a number, so that would be our answer, x equals 9. Okay, let me show you one more example. We're getting a little bit more complex. So we started out really, really simple. Now we're getting a little bit more complex each time. So now I'm going to have something like 2x plus 3 equals 4x. Let's do plus 21. Okay. Now this is more complicated because now we have x's on both sides. When we draw our line, the left side and the right side, we have x's on both sides. So the first thing I want to do is get all the x's on one side. Normally I like my x's on the left side, but on this one, I'm going to move them to the right side. It doesn't matter. You can do whatever you want. You can have your x's on the left side. It really doesn't matter. The only reason I'm choosing to do that is to keep my numbers positive, just because positive numbers are nice. But if you want to move it to the left side, you absolutely can. So, to move this 2x over to the other side, again, think about how you can cancel that out. So it's just a positive 2x. So I'm going to do minus 2x. So those will cancel and get to 0. And then again, I just have to do the same thing on the other side. So minus 2x. And let's just do that step. So those two canceled to 0. Let's bring down that 3 equals 4x minus 2x is 2x. And then I'm just going to bring down that plus 21. So now I have the x on the right side. So I'm just going to keep the x there. And I'll just try to move all the other numbers over to the left side. So let's start with this plus 21. So to cancel that out, we just do the opposite. So we're going to minus 21. So those will cancel to 0. And then I have to do minus 21 on the other side. So let's just do that step. So 3 minus 21, looks like I got negative numbers after all. Oh well. So 3 minus 21 would be a negative 18 equals, I'm going to bring down that 2x, and then the 21's already canceled to 0. Okay, we're getting closer, but my x is still not completely alone. So this 2x means 2 times x. So the opposite of timesing is dividing. So I'm going to divide by 2. And again, they are just going to divide to 1. So 1 times x is just x. And then I have to do the same thing on the other side. Divide by 2. Okay, so then I get negative 18 divided by 2 is negative 9 equals x. Or traditionally we write this like x equals negative 9. So that's our answer. X equals negative 9. So there's just a quick overview of how to solve for a variable in these basic equations. The main thing to keep in mind is just to always keep your equation balanced. So think of your equation like a scale. You can do whatever you want, whatever the heck you want to your equation. You just have to do the same thing to both sides. And so strategically, you're going to want to do things that help you cancel out the numbers until you get x by itself. And then when you're all done solving, you should get x equals your answer. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this helped. Please let me know in the comments if there are any other math topics that you want me to cover in a future video. Thank you.